I want to thank everybody for being here right now. And at this moment, there is one person here, but after the fact, you will be here because you press play on this video. At the moment of this recording, though, I am live, and I just wanted to get to it immediately before the feeling wore off. I'm very happy right now because, like most of the other, well, there's not a lot of them. We are the minority of underdogs that believed that Edwards was going to come out of this fight the winner. I called it. I said that he was my pick. Did I lose some heart toward the end? Was I a bit frustrated with him because I felt like he was giving up and he was demoralized and he was ashamed and he was counting himself out? Yes, but maybe I was playing possum. You didn't think about that, did you? Maybe I was giving you that 5-round rope of dope. But let me take you back to the beginning. If you were here and you watched the whole stream, I appreciate you being here again. I know it's late. I know you probably want to go to sleep. I was thinking about doing this video tomorrow and maybe writing it and editing and stuff like that. But I thought, chale, I already know what's going to happen. It's going to take me 2.5 weeks to do it. And before I even get to it, the Weasel's going to make 9 videos about it. So I'm going to talk about it right now. Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards, part 2. Here's what I said. Let me take you through the whole journey. All right, because maybe you didn't see what I said about it before. I said, if Usman comes into this fight, fighting the way that he fought his last several fights, Edwards is going to beat him. And here was my reasoning for that. I said that Kamaru Usman leaves too many openings. He lets himself get hit too much. I know what you're thinking. He's got that big old Funko Pop dome. He could get away with it. It finally backfired. With a target like that, it's too hard to miss. So I said, if he keeps fighting like that, if he keeps fighting that style where he's too, he gets too much of a big head, no pun intended. If he gets too much of a big head and he thinks he's invincible and he thinks no one could dethrone him, he's gonna keep leaving those openings. He's gonna keep getting touched up too much. He got touched up a lot against Covington. He got touched up against Burns. He got touched up not as much, but against Masvidal. But the problem is those guys didn't know how to capitalize on it. And I broke it down when I was doing the live stream right now. I said the problem with those guys, like Burns was coming in real emotional, real sentimental or whatnot. They knew each other. They knew each other's kids. They trained together. How was this fool going to pay for this kid's tuition and private school? And what if I lose, will you pay my kids? Because now I don't make as much pay-per-view points. How are we going to figure that out? There was a lot of emotion right there. And then you have Covington, the hatred, the animosity, and just the tension and everything, right? He was too mad. And then you got Masvidal, and they got that rivalry, and they got that machismo, and that ego, and the drama, and the backstory, and everything. There was just too much there. The moment that Usman left the opening, and they made contact, they got too emotional because of the hatred, the frustration, the sentimentalism, the animosity, whatever it is, and they had no composure. So the thing was, if Usman came into this fight like that, against the composure like we've never seen before, aside like Khabib Nurmagomedov, somebody that has the composure of a Leon Edwards against someone who leaves all these openings and only has survived because his opponents get too reckless and they're always a little bit too intimidated. If he goes up against someone like Edwards, it's gonna be it. And I said that Edwards is just too composed for the way that we've been seeing Usman fighting. So I said, if they come in the same fighters, because Amanda Nunes came in that last fight a different fighter because she knew she had to change her whole life in order to beat Peña. I said, if they come in the same fighters, Usman's losing. And I said it. I said he's either going to get knocked out or at the very least decision. And I'm sure people thought I was crazy for saying that. And then I learned more stuff that I didn't even know when I said that. Then I found out that Edwards had been in Utah. He had been staying. He almost converted. That fool, he got what's it called? Elevation? Supposedly there's something called elevation tents. Some people train with the elevation mask or something. Those stupid fools in the gym, and it's like they're kind of. He got the whole tent. Like usually it's kind of a thing that people put on Instagram, and it's kind of annoying, and it tells you a lot about what kind of person they are, and they take a bunch of photos of it. This was an elevation tent, and he stayed in the mountains of Utah in that high elevation. It's enough even being in Utah, the elevation, the altitude, and everything. But on top of that, he was staying in the elevation tent. And I'm just going to make an assumption right here because nobody's told me otherwise. For all I know, he could have had a mask on while he was in that tent. And you have Usman over here staying in the Holiday Inn, buying his little midriff suits, taking it easy, getting room service, thinking that he's unbeatable, thinking that he's going to surpass Anderson Silva. And it's perfect that we're talking about Leon Rocky Edwards right here, because he was training like Rocky. He was hitting the elevation like Rocky, out there in the mountains, chopping wood and stuff like that with his bane on. And this other fool, Usman, was living like that one fool that, that fool that was taking the steroids and, coincidence, and using all those machines and stuff and the air conditioning, and he was all pampered and stuff like that. That's the kind of life. Usman got domesticated. He got civilized, and it backfired on him. So apparently, Edwards was doing all this training in addition to their fighting styles, which gave him even more of a leg up. So we get to the fight. Edwards dominates the first round, and I'm like, that's where it's at. You got to do that elevation training. You got to be breathing with your mouth open. If you weren't with me there during the live stream, you don't really know what I'm talking about, but we came to the conclusion that breathing through your mouth is a lot more efficient than breathing through your nostrils, because look at the holes. I'm going to show you this real quick. Look at the size of my mouth hole. Look at, I could go a lot bigger than that, but I'll go bigger. See, that's the size of my mouth hole. Look at my nose holes. They're small. It doesn't matter if I try to go farther. It's just science and mathematics. The circumference of my mouth hole is way bigger than my nose holes, so it's more efficient to be a mouth breather. I'm staying on this point too long, though. The point is, you look at Usman's style, you look at Edwards' style. Edwards' style is going to beat that fool 10 times out of 10 times if you don't count the first fight. And then you talk about the elevation, and you talk about Usman not taking this fight seriously, living the pampered lifestyle, thinking that he doesn't have to put in the work anymore. Then Edwards dominates the first round. Then he comes out in the second round, and I'm like, and I said this during the live stream, I said, did he feel his strength or something? Did he feel Usman's strength? Did he get hit with a certain kind of strike or a kick, or he wrapped him up, or something had to happen either at the end of the first round or the beginning of the second, because it completely changed Edwards. What happened? Did he get stung by a bee? Something happened in the cage, because he was a different fighter just like that. He was dominating the first round, and boom. And it's like, if he would have got knocked down 2-3 times, if he would have been getting outclassed, it would be different. But in my opinion, Edwards won the first 2 rounds. So, I mean, there was no saying that, like, Usman came out way better and punked him in the second round. There was nothing like that. So it was like, what happened to him? Third round, fourth round, it's like, what is he doing? It almost looked like he was like in a comatose state. He looked like that one fool from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You know, his one friend that was like, he wasn't there. He was looking like that. And then every time he went to the corner, his ref was yelling at him. You know, like a principal yelling at a kid, and the kid's just like, and the fool's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you listening to me? Why don't you try harder? How come you're, and you're just like that. And he wouldn't even look at him. He was completely disheartened, completely demoralized, discouraged, had fully given up on himself. He just wasn't there. He was done with the fight. He didn't even look at him. And then after I had said that, after I had talked about that, and I was saying it in the chat, like, are you guys seeing this? Then I heard DC and I heard Rogan saying, hey, no. They were talking about it after the other guy. You know the other fool they always cut away to? And he's in a lot of the pre-fight shows and stuff like that. I always forget his name. They cut to him and they're like, hey, tell us what you think. And he's like, look at his body language. He won't even look at his coach. He won't even make eye contact with them. That's a good indication that he's ashamed. He's embarrassed. He's discouraged. He like gave up on himself. Like he's done. He's checked out. And it was so weird to look at him. The coach smacked him in the face like 5 times. He kept pointing his finger at him and yelling. He going, wake up. You got to do more. He kept slapping him. And Edwards was just like that. Like, I deserve this. Slap me again. Like, he didn't even care. Zach of all trades in the chat. 25 months going strong. Thank you, Zach of all trades. We missed you tonight, but I forgive you. You probably had a party. Zach of all trades, sorry I missed out on the stream. Hope you had a good night. It was fun. And Leon Edwards made sure that it was a good night. It was fun. It would have been funner if we had you, but I understand. You got a family and whatnot. These things are a lot more important than UFC events. But we couldn't figure it out. It was weird. He wasn't there. He was done. He checked out. People thought he was taking a dive. It didn't make any sense. This fool worked so hard for years to be given respect, to be taken seriously, and it looked like he was like, I don't even want to be here. It was as if he felt something from Usman that made him realize, I could fight as hard as I want. I'm going to lose anyway, so forget it. I'm not even going to try. That's what it seemed like. And then I started saying toward that, it was either at the end of the 4th round or the beginning of the 5th. I was saying like that fool from WWF, the JR. I was saying, either this fool's playing possum, he's doing the 5-round rope-a-dope, or he's done and he gave up on himself and he doesn't want to fight anymore. He's just collecting the pay-per-view check, so that he could buy a new car because he was done. And then like 2 minutes later, it happened, and everyone in the chat was like, "Oh snap! He was playing that 5-round rope-a-dope. He was playing possum. What a genius!" He was actually, and then we were thinking like, maybe his coach told him like, not all loud, we got the fool yelling at him, screaming at him all loud, smacking him. Maybe one of his other coaches was like, fool, you came out looking too strong in the 1st round. You got to tone it down. So he's like, oh yeah. And then he started giving the puppy dog guys the next 4 rounds. He rope-a-doped them for 5 rounds. We never seen anything like that before. He took the rope-a-dope to the next level. He waited for how many? There was like under a minute left. What was there? It was like as close as you could get. They're already saying it was the best head kick ever in the history of the sport. And when you look at who he did it to, you look at the fashion in which he did it, you look at how late in the game he did it, you look at Usman's streak, you look at his resume, who he's beat, there's no doubt this is the best head kick ever in the history of the UFC. He fooled us. He was my pick. I said he was going to win. I said at the beginning of the stream, man, it's kind of weird how it's the end of an era. We're going to have a new champion tonight. It's going to feel weird. It's going to take a while to get used to. But when we got to the 5th round, I was getting frustrated at him. I was like, fool, how much are they paying you to do this? I was mad at him. I started to give up too. And I wasn't playing possum. I started to get demoralized. And I didn't put money on it or nothing, but I just wanted to see that. I just wanted to see that fool go down already. I kind of had enough of him. And I did put respect on his name. Because he did become a dominant fighter. But that fool thought he was invincible. And he fell for the same thing that DC did against John Jones. And I'm not a John Jones fan. I don't like that fool either. But that's probably the best way to describe it if you didn't see it. Matthew Lazo, Dean Thomas, that's his name. Dean Thomas. That was driving me crazy. Chef X Hyro, I have a conspiracy theory. Leon waited to the last round to throw the combo the same way Nate came back the last round when he got comfortable. That's a beautiful theory right there. That actually makes a lot of sense because that probably frustrated Leon and his coaches a lot that it came that close, and Nate Diaz could have won that fight if he didn't opt for that. If he would have capitalized on it instead of doing the then he could have won that fight, but he messed up. And something like that definitely has the potential to stay with Leon, and maybe he tried to spin it in a positive way and use something like this. Now you're asking what's next. Well, I would be very surprised. If Dana White didn't want to give Usman the immediate rematch. You know that he loves Usman. He loves what he brings, and everybody hates him. And he's like, oh, good, everybody hates him. Then they're gonna buy the pay-per-view because they want to see him lose. They know that he runs his mouth. They know that he could use the mic and it's cringe and stuff, but it works. It's niche. It works. But immediately he's gonna want to give him that. That's what we were all thinking. This is gonna be done. Benya can't get her rematch. It took forever for who was the other people that we were just talking about? Someone else who deserved the rematch right away and didn't get it. I know Moreno was one of them, but there was another one that's like, wow, for real, you're gonna wait forever to give him his rematch? Who was it? Rose Namajunas. It's like all of a sudden you just kick her to the curb just because you're trying to bring in new nations and demographics and stuff like that. You're just trying to spread the wealth. Like, if anybody deserves it right away, it's Rose. Was it a bad fight? Was it slow? Was it frustrating to be a Rose fan? Yes. But it doesn't mean that she doesn't deserve it after everything that she's done for the company. She absolutely deserves it. But he's going to give it to Usman right away just because of who he is, because of his resume, because of what he's done. And he's going to want to have that comeback story and have him be right back there just like Nunes. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Who else would he think of just the same? Dana White probably loves Chamoyev just as much, if not more. I mean, a lot of the love and admiration that Dana White has for Usman is because of the money, because he had the bout. because of what he brought to the sport. Because of that, Dana White probably gets tired of dealing with them and Ali Abdelaziz. That he'd probably rather deal with Khamzat Chimaev because that fool's funny. Usman is cringe. Chimaev is funny. That fool's a trip. And if it was like Covington or Masvidal or Burns, then it would be like, meh. But Chimaev, that's somebody that might cut in front of Usman. Because not only does everybody love watching Khamzat fight, they also like him. Because people love watching Usman's fights, but they don't like him. They want to see him lose. Or even if it's because he's dominant, they like to see a good fight, but they don't like him. If you watch Khamzat Chimaev, he's dominant, you're excited to see him, you actually like him, you're going to pay for that fight, it's a whole different demographic, a whole different country, you're going to bring in a whole new audience. There's probably more plus sides for Dana to give it to Chimaev than to Usman. Coque 007, money got to Usman, changed my... Definitely. That's what I was saying earlier. You got, you had Leon Edwards committing to Utah. That fool was up there. He was up there in the elevation mask, in the elevation tent, up at and the elevation in the mountains. He was digging roots in there. That fool was converting to Mormonism. He bought a house there, or at least a timeshare, something. It wouldn't make sense for him to be there year round, but he was like digging in. He was like settling. And you got Usman over there on the Holiday Inn, room service day and night, rocking the midriff, saying like, hey, if you had this body, you would be showing it off too. That's not the mentality of a champ that wants to keep winning. That's somebody let the feria get to his head. Once you got too much feria in there, you don't leave room for anything else. And Leon was hungry. Leon was like Bruce Lee, empty your mind. Right here, Usman, feria. And why the dome keep getting bigger and bigger? He was thinking about nothing but money. Mind on his money and the money on his mind. And you got Leon Edwards up there meditating in the mountains in the elevation, just emptying his mind, thinking about nothing but the fight. That fool was hungry. I'm telling you. So it would make a lot of sense for Dana White to give Usman the rematch, but it might make even more sense for him to give it to Chimaev. And what some people say, Tyrone will show up for the post-fight recap. Tyrone will show up for the post-stream recap. All of a sudden, Leon must have sensed a Grandmaster triumphant return to the streams. I'm glad I didn't bet you my piano, Grandmaster. I'm officially announcing my sponsorship of the stream for UFC 281 Adesanya vs. Pereira. See you in a few months. I will not leave. I will never leave you nor forsake you. I will be here. And if I do leave, I'll come back. If I do leave, I'll come back. I probably shouldn't say that I'll never leave, but if I do leave, I'll come back. And I appreciate that very much. Tyrone will be so supportive. Thank you very much, Tyrone will. I can't. Tyrone will, whatever you do for a living, I want to apply there. I don't know how you're able to be so generous. Thank you very much, Tyrone will. Thank you. I will see you at UFC 281. Thank you very much. Elijah Rudin, all of a sudden, Snoozeman gives Rocky his history book story. His histories. It's like reading a long hashtag. All of a sudden, Snoozeman gives Rocky his history book story. Elijah Rudin, it's good to see you again. I'm glad you didn't go to sleep. Ray, sources are telling me that Usman is currently buttoning up his shirts now. He's trying to get back to his roots. Rocky rocked Usman's dome. I told everyone that was betting, and they all lost. They don't know. See, here's the thing. At first, people weren't putting respect on Usman's name, right? But then they put too much. And it got to his head. And then his head went like this. It looks like that fool's walking around rocking his own papaca. But it's not. It's just organic. So look, there's people who are saying, look I want to see the rematch, Usman and Leon. And then the winner fight, Chimaev, because he's going to beat Nate Diaz. But then it's like, wait a minute. Okay, Edwards just defeated Usman. He played possum for 5 rounds. He played the 5-round rope-a-dope. We know that he could beat Usman now. But if there's even a chance he wasn't playing possum, Usman was dominant like the whole fight. So if Usman does win, then we see Usman fight Chimaev, which is what we all want to see. I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't want to see Edwards versus Usman again. I don't want to see Edwards versus Chimaev. Everybody wants to see Usman versus Chimaev. that will probably bring in more money. That will bring in way more money, I think, than Edwards versus Usman again. I think people want to see. It's messed up. It's messed up. I'm still not putting respect on his name. I was rooting for him, and I'm still not putting respect on Edwards' name because I'm over here saying that a fight between Chimaev and Usman will make more money than Edwards fighting anybody. That's messed up. But it's the reality. So I think if Dana White is smart and he wants to make more money, he's going to do Chimaev and Usman first. Because if he does Usman and Edwards first, and we know Edwards could beat him, and Dana knows Edwards could beat him, Edwards might beat him, and then we don't see Chimaev and Usman because Edwards is going to beat Usman, and then Chimaev is going to fight Edwards for the title. And then who knows what happens from there. Chimaev probably beats him. But who knows if Usman gets back up there and fights Chimaev. And then we won't ever get to see it. We need to see Chimaev versus Usman. So hopefully they make that fight first. It probably wouldn't seem fair because of how much. I mean, it's a struggle. Because right now, at the end of the fight, DC was even saying in the post-fight wrap-up, I want to make sure I don't miss this. Coke 007, Grandmaster, my girl don't want to give me she doesn't want to have a baby? Tell her something. Look, let me how do I want to put this? She doesn't want to have a baby. Tell her something. So here's two things. If you really love Coke 007, I think you should give him a child for two reasons. If you really love him, because number one, if you have the baby and Coke 007 is a good guy, then you this is horrible advice. I was gonna say then he will stick around and then he won't leave you, but that never works out because I know a lot of people where the opposite happened. But it's a good test if he's a good guy, because if he's not a good guy, he'll leave, and then you didn't want him in the first place. Another thing, if an unfortunate circumstance ever takes place and you lose Coke 007, like if you're at the Super Walmart and then he goes down to look for some shoes and then you can't find them or something like that, and then your cell phone's dead and you're unable to contact him, and then like if you lose track of him and like you have another, like you have someone else to carry on his name, and then I feel like if I had more time I could think of better reasons, but hopefully those are enough. I hope that you give him a child, because then the love that you two have already can only expand and go on even longer and live on, and it's really good for your taxes too. Ray, oh wow, I missed some. Elijah Rudin. Oh, DC had to push a narrative at the end. The only sour part of the night. Dana just said he'll probably do Usman versus Edwards 3 at Wembley. See, DC pushed it. And look, I've always been a DC fan. I've always been rocking with DC. I have never for a second been anti-DC. There are times when I get upset with him and I get frustrated with him, like when he was supposed to retire and when he told everyone and promised his family and his fans and the organization, everyone, that he was going to retire, and he would have retired on top like Seinfeld. He would have been like a champ, and then he went back on it and he got knocked out and ruined his legacy. I was very frustrated. I was very mad at him. I was very upset. But I've always been a DC fan. But sometimes he says some dumb stuff, And at the end of the fight, he said this. He was like, "Yeah, Hamza, I'm sorry to tell you, but your journey to the title just got longer. It just got harder, because if anyone deserves this, it's Usman. He deserves a rematch." What? I mean, Hamza has had a climb too. He's had a struggle too. I mean, if you're gonna compare resumes, look at Chimaev he's had like the American Idol type of struggle, where if you watch like a video of his backstory, you're like, oh snap, let this fool fight for the title, like he deserves this. But if you look at the resumes, and you're like, obviously, Usman's resume looks better. But I'm hoping to pull on the heartstrings. I'm hoping to go the emotional route, because I don't want Usman to fight Edwards again. I really don't want that to happen again. But unfortunately, because of the way that it happened, I know the head kick was dominant. It was a dominant knockout. But unfortunately, we can't ignore the fact that it was late in the 5th round and Nafo was on his way to losing. Hopefully, Edwards could spin the narrative and be like, fool, I tricked all of you. I was playing possum. I did that 5-round rope-a-dope. Check this out. And then he pulls up a video of himself holding up a newspaper from a long time ago saying, look, this is the proof that I was planning to do the 5-round rope-a-dope the whole time. This wasn't an accident at the last second. This was my game plan. It would be like, oh, dang it. It wasn't an accident. He tricked all of us except the Grandmaster. That will be amazing. And I hope something like that happens. Ray, reason this knockout is so satisfying is because Usman will follow Leon and smile at him after each round. Leon from the trenches, career-changing KO. I know. It was annoying. Every time after the round, it's like, fool, go to your corner. Go listen to that fool. Was it Trevor Whitman? Go listen to what that fool has to say. And he's just following, wasting his time, playing games, playing those mind games. Chef X Hyrule. By the way, Tony versus Lee Jingling announced at 170. Oh, Tony's done. That fool's solid. Jingling, that fool's solid. At 170, that's interesting. That's going to be a lot of power from Jingling. JG, you see Adesanya losing out too? What about Olives winning? I mean, Adesanya never had a chance against Pereira. Never had a chance. I don't know if it's true. I saw on a Reddit forum that supposedly Adesanya is going to have to pull out of the fight because of the monkeypox. I don't know if that's true. Don't say that I quoted. I just heard that some people were saying that he was that there were suspicions that he had to go and that supposedly it was just staph and it's not a big deal. But I don't know. But if it happens, I've been thinking, yes, it's going to be Pereira. There's no question. And I think that Islam is going to destroy Oliveira because Oliveira, just like Usman, just like I said, he leaves too many openings because he wants to breathe that Brazilian zombie and he lets himself get hit too much. Go get 007, just playing, bro. She wants my DNA. Thanks for the advice. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. To be honest with you. And I'm very happy that you're able to have that kind of love in the year of 2022. You know, the love is it's a far and few between thing these days, and I celebrate your love, Coque 007. I celebrate your love. Mark D, thank you, Mark D. Man, a few words. Marloca, still hanging around. Taco Funds for the next Vice stream. I will be prepared. I might have a little ice chest right here with my ice drinks next time because I got a little bit parched, especially after that knockout. I got a little bit parched. I'm going to wrap it up right here. I already laid out what happened beforehand. I told you what happened during the fight. We witnessed the best rope-a-dope in combat sports history. It was that 5-round rope-a-dope. Yes, he fooled all of you, but he did not fool me. I called it. Go back to the stream, my most previous video where I told you before it even happened, that fool's playing the 5-round rope-a-dope. He's playing possum, and it came to pass. I think that he's probably going to end up fighting Usman. Usman should fight Chamoya first. That's what everybody wants to see. Dana White proves time and time again. It's not about the rankings. It's not about who deserves it. It's about the money. And if you're really about the money, if you're going to be consistent, Dana White, the money is Chamoyev and Usman. And then when Chamoyev wins, then he can fight Edwards. And then he could get the bout. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video. It makes YouTube think that I have a good channel. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can keep hearing me talk at you. And don't forget to leave a comment thinking about what you think is going to happen, what you think should happen. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for watching Mexican Martial Arts. Appreciate it. Good looking out. Late.